Hello and good evening to all the dignitaries and delegates who have gathered here today from every corner of Northeast India and beyond. I'm grateful to the Golden Jubilee Celebration Committee for this opportunity to come before you. Today I would like to talk about a research project on Rani gaidinlui that I have been involved with for the last 1 year. The project is called Decolonizing the Museum, digitally repatriating the gaidinlui collection from UK to India, or just the D-News project for short. It is a 4-year research project headed by Dr. Arpatom Longkumar of University of Edinburgh and Professor Claire Harris of University of Oxford. I am a postdoctoral research associate in this project, and we also have 3 other research associates here who are participating in the project. They are Mr. Miteoboy Ngame from Haflong in Assam, Ms. Soizai Nyumai from Tening Village in Peren District, Nagaland, and Ms. Lanchumai Golmai from Imphal, Manipur. We are also happy to have Dr. Tatsile Zelian from Jaluke in Nagaland as a research consultant in our project. Now, before I talk about the project itself, we might take a look at the past where the story actually begins. As you all know, Rani gaidinlui was born in 1915 and was a Zeliangram Naga who was 16 years old when she led an uprising against the British between 1929 and 1932. In their efforts to put down this rebellion, the British launched massive military operations in the Zeliangram areas in search of Hypo Jadunan and Rani gaidinlui. While Jadunan was arrested and executed in 1931, Rani gaidinlui was arrested in 1932 after evading capture by hiding in various places. The military operations to suppress the rebellion was conducted by various Assam Rifles units under leadership of British officials such as J.P. Mills, who was the Deputy Commissioner of Naga Hills District, J.C. Higgins, political agent of the Manipur state, S.J. Duncan, SDO of Tamilnadu, and Captain MacDonald of the 3rd Assam Rifles. During these raids, the British forces left a trail of destruction and burned Harappa temples in many places such as Kambiram and in Nandgaon. No doubt their objective was to suppress the people's uprising by creating panic and fear among the followers of Jharkhand and Rani gaidinlui. During these operations, a number of artifacts were also taken from various locations. During these operations, the British confiscated Rani gaidinlui's notebooks, clothing, ornaments, and various ritual objects that she left behind at various places. Her personal belongings were also confiscated at the time of her arrest in Poilwa in Nagaland in 1932. Now, these objects, collected by various British officers during the military operations, were then taken back to the UK when they returned home. These were then later donated to the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford in the 1930s and 1950s. As of today, the museum has a large collection associated with Rani gaidinlui, and this is known as the gaidinlui collection. The collection has a total of 28 objects. This includes a rectangular bamboo basket containing 12 notebooks said to be written in Ranima's own hand. There is also a shoulder cloth, a waist cloth, brass armbands, and a bracelet that are said to have been her personal belongings. There are also a number of religious objects that were supposedly used as part of rituals before the Battle of Hangum in 1932. Finally, the collection also contains a number of textiles that were taken from 2 statues that were destroyed inside the Jadunan temple in Kambiram in 1931. Most of the clothing items, including Ranima's personal belongings and those taken from Kambiram, were made using Rongmai designs and techniques. Now, most of these objects were given to the museum in 1932 by J.P. Mills, and some of the other objects, such as the ornaments, were donated to the museum by the widow of Lieutenant Colonel Nai of the 3rd Assam Rifles. At present, these artifacts are not on public display in the museum and have been kept in secure storage. Now, the existence of this gaidinlui collection in a museum based in the UK raises many important questions about the history of British colonialism in India. One cannot turn a blind eye to the acts of violence, deception, and blackmail through which many of these objects were taken to the UK. Museums around the world today are being forced to acknowledge the history of colonialism through which many of them have developed their massive collections. There is a need to question how colonial knowledge used these objects to propagate a negative image of indigenous peoples. And in museums around the world today, indigenous voices are completely excluded from important decisions about how objects are to be displayed to the viewing public. Indeed, even after the end of colonialism, the museum still remains tied to its colonial past. Indigenous scholars around the world are calling for new kinds of research and approaches in cultural policy which will help to decolonize the museum, which can help address the problem of colonial power and ideology in institutions like museums and universities. In this project, our objective was to use digital technology as a way to decolonize the museum. In short, we are trying to use digital technology to create copies of the original objects which are kept in the Pitt Rivers Museum, and then are trying to bring them back to the Gaidinlui community based here in India. In our work, we have tried to use technologies to digitize the collection. For instance, we have done high-resolution digital photography for each artifact in the collection. The Gaidinlui notebooks have been carefully studied and scanned using high-resolution cameras. These photographs were also printed to create a mobile exhibition as well as informative catalog that contained information about all the objects as well as images of each of the artifacts in the collection. The catalog booklet was translated into Zeme, Yanmai and Rombai languages for the purposes of this project. We have also made a short film that gives a glimpse of the objects themselves and how they are kept in the museum at present. We have also used 3D photogrammetry technology to create digital 3D models of some of the items, which can be viewed on laptop, tablets, as well as ordinary smartphones. These 3D models allow us to look at the object from each direction as if it was a real object in our hands, rather than just a flat image. We have tried to use social networking media such as WhatsApp to share these photos and films with the community as well. This has been an important tool in raising awareness about the collection, and many people have shared photos of the collection and the exhibition with their family members and on various community-based WhatsApp groups. The key objective of our project is to focus on various aspects of this digitizing process. First, we are interested in using the digital technology to preserve the collection. Second, we want to use it to bring these museum objects closer to the community. And third, to update and improve the information about these objects that is kept in the museum records. As we know, the objects in the collection are today almost 100 years old. And despite best efforts, the more fragile objects in the collection suffer due to the effects of weather and age. Today it is possible to use technologies such as high-quality photography, videography, and 3D modeling to create digital copies of these objects that are protected from the effects of wear and tear. It becomes possible to create a copy of the present condition of the object, which will exist even if the object itself is damaged in some way. It also allows researchers to work on the collection without having to handle the original objects with their own hands each and every time. This protects the artifacts from accidental damage as well as long-term damage due to exposure to dust, oil from hands and from harsh light. The high-quality digital copies of these objects we feel can go a long way in helping to preserve the collection for future generations. Digitizing these objects also has another important effect. It makes the object something that can be moved from one place to another. The collection, which is kept in a museum almost 8,000 kilometers away, can now be brought closer to the community. Indeed, physical distance and lack of access are an important reason why the Gaidinlui collection today has been kept separate from the people for whom it holds the most importance. Through our project, we are trying to understand the scope of using technology to bring the collection closer to the community. In fact, by creating digital copies of the objects, people can even begin to make these a part of their daily lives. This is something we all already see nowadays. For example, the photo of Rani after her arrest in Poilwa has been downloaded from the internet and printouts are put up in display in many people's homes and in very many other places as well. The digital copies of the objects have also been very useful when we are trying to collect authentic information about the artifacts. In fact, the work of collecting information to update and correct the museum records is important and is being undertaken as part of this project. At present, almost all the information about the artifacts has been provided only by the colonial officers. In other words, it provides a colonial perspective on what these things are and what they actually mean. In many cases, the information is correct, and in some places, the language used to describe them is objectionable. In our field work, we are trying to use the technology to collect information to update the museum records, so that with the help of the photos and the 3D models, we can actually give a person who we are talking to, we can give them a good idea of what the original object looks like, even though they might be based in a place which is very far from the museum itself. In addition to this, access to information in the digital medium makes it available to research scholars based anywhere in the world. With the proper use of this technology, it is possible a scholar sitting here in Haflong will be able to get all the required information about the collection without having to visit the museum itself. The digitization project we have done in our project has created material that can be used as educational resources within the community as well. It provides a glimpse of the community's history and can bring together in one place a wide range of stories, memories, and incidents that have almost been forgotten today. Indeed, in some small way, having digital access to museum objects can have an impact on community identity and how it understands its cultural heritage and the past. Finally, through the use of technology and documentation of these objects, we are not limited to recording information only in the written form. For us, this was very important because a large number of cultural practices associated with Ranima and with Haraka cultural practices are not actually in written form but use things like group singing. For example, group singing is one of the important ways of learning and sharing Ranima's teachings. The songs themselves transmit the content of her teachings, but it is the act of collective singing that strengthens the sense of community and belonging. The digital technology allows us a wide range of media through which we can record such practices in as authentic a way as possible. This helps to reduce chances of incorrect translation and misrepresentation of these practices. Ultimately, we are hopeful that all the material collected will help us to integrate an indigenous perspective in how the collection is catalogued and displayed in the museum. Perhaps the most important phase of the project was undertaken in the last 6 months when we conducted extensive workshops and fieldwork in the Dimasao area in Assam and in Peren district in Nagaland. We have spent approximately 2 months in each of these places conducting research. Our project was designed first around doing a series of group discussion based workshops where we interacted with community members and stakeholders. After that, we proceeded to do extensive fieldwork and individual villages in various villages in the Zeliangrong areas of Assam and Nagaland. In Assam, our community workshops in Haflong continued for about 2 weeks, and during this period, we interacted with many of the respected elders of the community who generously shared with us their knowledge about Haraka religion and Zeliangrong culture. And they also brought up their memories of personal meetings with Ranima herself. Among many others, we are very thankful to Dr. Ramkoi Wangbe Neume, Mr. Haigang Kambe Kwame, Mr. Helelung Neume for sharing their time with us. After the workshops in Haflong, we proceeded to the Zeme areas including Laisong, Hajaichak, Kipelo, Nyanglopungo, Tungje, Harelo and Hangrum. Here we had a chance to meet Mr. Lungdituing Riame, son of Masang Riame in Kipelo, and Miss Pehe Bulungle Ngame of Laisong, who was Ranima's personal assistant. In Nagaland, we conducted workshops for a 2-week period in Tening and Jaluke town in Peren district. Here we are thankful to the community organizations like Zeliangrong Haraka Association Northeast India and Nagaland Selangrong Haraka Youth Organization Nagaland, Selangrong Baudi, Selangrong Mipui Organization, Selangrong Haraka Paileo Baudi, Selangrong Students Association, and Selangrong Youth Association for participating in our community workshops. We also would like to extend our thanks to Mr. Gaidinlui Zeliang, Mr. Bami Hao, Mr. Huzan Tadbo Meriam, and Ms. Apeona Ihelum and Ms. Alake, all of whom kindly agreed to participate in our discussions. After completing the workshops in Nagaland, we visited the historical villages such as Poilwa, where we found the Rani caves, and Poilwa, where she was finally arrested in 1932. We also visited Anjau village to meet an expert basket weaver who told us in great detail about the original basket that was there in Ranima's in the Gaidinlui collection, in which the notebooks were kept and stored.